Hello everyone, welcome to Yuva and Kimoti's weekly live session. Today I will be doing this live alone and our topic is Malaysia's data center and what is happening and why it matters. And next time Kimoto-san will join us as usual and we can go deeper into the business side on this topic. But today for part 1, I want to explain the basics clearly. What is a data center? Why is Malaysia getting attention? And is Johor Bahru, a region, really becoming a data center hub? And Singapore, how about Singapore? Is Singapore connected to this? And what are the big companies are already operating their data centers in Malaysia? And also the sustainability. First, what is data center? A data center, it is large, a secure building full of servers. These servers, they store, process, and deliver data for many digital services. For example, when we use online banking, YouTube, Netflix, cloud storage, e-commerce, company systems, or AI tools like ChatGPT and Gemini and more, all of these services, they need computing power. But where does that computing power come from? It actually comes from real servers in real buildings using real electricity cooling systems, network cables, backup power, and security. So, in short, we can say that AI it is actually digital, but it needs the physical infrastructure. And one of the most important part of that physical infrastructure is the data center. And why data centers are important now? Well, data centers are becoming a big deal because the world is using more cloud services and more AI. Correct? Before, many companies they kept their systems inside their own office or in a small server room. But now, many businesses they use cloud services like AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, Oracle Cloud, and Alibaba and more. So this AI actually makes this demand even bigger. And when we ask AI to write text, generate images, summarize documents, analyze data, or create code, the powerful servers are working behind the scenes. So when AI grows, the cloud demand grows. And when the cloud demand grows, the data center also grows. That is why the data centers are now connected to AI, cloud computing, digital banking, online business, cybersecurity, and even national digital economy strategy. Well, as a Malaysian, I feel proud to talk about my country's advantages in this area. Malaysia actually has several advantages. Compared with Singapore, Malaysia has more land. Malaysia can also be more cost effective for large scale facilities. So, Malaysia can also be more cost effective for large scale facilities. And on top of that, Malaysia has a strategic location in Southeast Asia because we are close to Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand, and other Asian markets. So, Malaysia also has growing demand for AI, cloud, cybersecurity, and digital services. So, because of this, Malaysia is becoming one of the attractive places of physically built data centers. And how about Johor Bahru? Johor, it is a state of Malaysia, and Johor Bahru, it is a city, closer city to Singapore. Um, According to Reuters in 2005, Johor it is actually Malaysia's leading data center hub because it is close to Singapore and can provide low latency connection. And Reuters also reported that based on Knight Frank data, Johor had 12 operational data centers by December 2024 with 28 more planned. So this means Johor already has operational data centers, and it is not only a future plan. And Reuters also reported in 2025 that Johor had approved 42 data center projects worth $164.45 billion as of 2025. And Johor is already a major data center hub, and many more projects are planned or approved, but not every announced project is already built. And about Singapore, Malaysia and Singapore connection, I would like to talk about this because Johor, it is very closest. Johor Bahru is a very closest city to Singapore, and this one, Singapore actually is still a major business, finance, and technology hub. Even many Malaysians actually go to Singapore to work because Singapore has many regional headquarters, technology companies, and high value jobs. So even though Singapore it is small, it still has many data centers. For example, Equinix officially actually lists multiple Singapore data centers. And Singapore also announced its green data center roadmap through IMDA in 2024. So this actually shows Singapore wants to grow data center capacity, but in a greener and more efficient way. And at the same time, Singapore has limited land, electricity, and water. So the data centers need a lot of space, power, cooling, and infrastructure. So because of that, nearby Johor becomes very attractive. And Johor Bahru is close to Singapore. Johor is close to Singapore as well. So, but it has more land and more expansion potential. So that is why some Singapore-based or Singapore-linked companies are building or developing data centers in Malaysia, especially in Johor. For example, the Keppel Data Centers has Keppel DC Johor 1, which was completed in 2020. And then we have a TM Xera, a joint venture between Telecom Malaysia and Xera. And then we have Singtest Data Center Arm. It is developing a large AI ready data center campus in Iskandar Putri, Johor. Then we have ST Telemedia Global Data Centers also has a Johor campus under development. The next one, the Princeton Digital Group, a Singapore headquartered company, also lists major Johor data center facilities. So Singapore still has its own data centers, but Malaysia and Singapore are becoming connected through a regional digital infrastructure corridor. And what about big companies like AWS, Microsoft, Alibaba, and others? So based on official announcements, news reports, actually AWS, Microsoft, Alibaba Cloud, Equinix, Equinix, Entity, and YTL, Princeton Digital Group, and more data centers already have operational cloud regions or data center facilities in Malaysia. For example, AWS officially announced in August 2024 that its Asia Pacific Malaysia region was open with three availability zones. And then the Microsoft also announced in May 2025 that its Malaysia West Cloud region in Greater Kuala Lumpur became generally available also with three availability zones. And Alibaba Cloud was reported in 2025 to have opened its third data center in Malaysia. So for data center operators like Equinix has its Johor data center, JH1 data center in Johor, and then we have Entity has facilities in Cyberjaya, and then YTL has an operational Johor data center while also expanding its green data center park. So there are also other major operators in Malaysia, such as Princeton Digital Group, Day One, and Bridge Data Centers. At the same time, some projects are still in progress or planned. And Google Google also actually has announced in 2024 they have planned for US $2 billion investment for its first Malaysia data center and cloud region in Selangor. And Oracle also they announced in 2024 more than US $6.5 billion to establish its first public cloud region in Malaysia. So the Malaysia's data center boom it is real. But the status is different for each company because some are already operating and some are expanding and some are still under construction or planned. And what about the sustainability and people's concerns? So this is also very important because data centers actually they bring investment. We all know that, but they also use lot of electricity, and some cooling systems also use water. So people may ask, will this affect the electricity supply, water, or local communities? Yes, I also worry about this, especially because I'm from Johor and where many data center projects are happening. But Malaysia is starting to manage this more carefully. uh, Based on MIDA and MITI, they actually published the guidelines for sustainable development of data centers in 2024. And this guideline actually focuses on energy efficiency, carbon reduction, environmental impact, and sustainable development. So Reuters also reported in 2025 that Johor had started stricter checks and had rejected some data center applications because they did not show strong water and energy sustainability practices. So Malaysia wants the investment and at the same time, but it cannot simply approve everything. So the future should not only be more data center, it should be more greener and smarter data centers. As a Malaysian, I feel happy to see that Malaysia is also thinking about the sustainability and how to protect people and local communities. So today the main point is this. Malaysia's data center is real. And the Johor data center growth also it's real. And Singapore still has many data centers, but because Singapore has limited land, power, and water, Johor becomes a natural expansion partner. So, and some companies are already operational in Malaysia, like AWS, Microsoft, Alibaba Cloud, Queenix, NTT, YTL, and more data centers, and some are announced or still in progress, like Google's Elmina data centers and Oracle's Malaysia cloud region. Data centers are not just buildings full of servers, they are actually the physical foundation of AI, cloud computing, online banking, digital business, and the future digital economy. But Malaysia also needs to manage electricity, water, land, and sustainability carefully in this area. Well, next week also we are going to continue with this topic. Next week, we are going to discuss about can Malaysia turns data centers into jobs, skills, software companies, cloud services, AI talent, and a stronger digital economy. Yeah, so hope we can catch you next week and thank you for watching. Thank you. Bye bye.